now when they're sending out, when you're getting back these pictures from Hubble, and you're getting these fabulous pictures of super galaxies out there. They said, holy smoke, there's literally hundreds and millions of galaxies out there, just like ours. They never saw it before. You know, that is Olodumare, that vastness that just keeps going and going and going. So Olodumare, in this creation of the earth, have the Orisha, who sit on the right side of Olodumare, at the right feet of Olodumare. So if I was that proverbial picture of God that people see, Orisha will be on this side of God's feet. And they, Orisha, are the deities. They are the ones you go to for things to stay in harmony with nature and the things around your interactions. You see, that's your right hand. And then the left hand of God, quote unquote, is the ancestors. So you have God, the ancestors, and you have the Orisha and the ancestors. And under that, once you get into, then that comes to life. In life, then under the ancestors, you have the Oba. That's the the king under the ancestors.
Oba. I said
Oba.
Oba.
Yeah, O-B-A. O-B-I. So under the Oba, then you have the Oboni, which is the town council, the chiefs, and all those. You have people who are like mothers and fathers. Because in the Yoruba sense, the mother and the father is your first title that you receive, before you become a sheriff or anything, you become a mother or a father. And so that is pretty much the breakdown, you see. And then you have fraternal organizations. The Yoruba are always trying to put something together and work together, create groups to keep cohesion in the community, keep people's feet moving and keep people working together, you see. And so ancestor veneration covers all of that area. But remember, we have to know how to apply this to the mind of the African American. Sure. You know, it's one thing to jump on a plane and go to Nigeria and just jump right in like that. The culture is too advanced, too far. I know people 10 years been going to West Africa, Nigeria. You see, and I don't see the Nigerian in them. You know, I by the African in them. I see the practitioner. I see the person who knows rituals, the person who studied certain things. But the Nigerian, the African, is an industrious, communal, working together, building bridges, and creating product. That's why they put you over here. They didn't bring you over here to be spiritual and teach them about God, because you're industrious. That's why. And so that is what you see when you go to Nigeria. You know, you should be looking for those people who make the windows, people who can make doors. But this is real empowering. You see, to debate over and over what God is better and what system of Orisha, whether it's from Cuba, Jamaica, or here, is better, is foolish. We're wasting our time. You know, we're turning into a religious people again. When in actuality, you go to Africa or Cuba, where these religions and cultures have been casting themselves over to the United States. They're very industrious, very communal, very communal. They're very steeped in the arts, how to carve something, how to cut brass, and create the little figurines that keep our culture. How to make adire, which is the sacred cloth that comes from Oshogbo. It's all connected to Oshun, the goddess, and Yemoja, the goddess. You know, these clothings are connected to gods and goddesses. They have some places in Oshogbo, Nigeria, where the people just make brass implements and make brass bells and brass statues. That's how they worship Oshun, like alcohol. Taking these metals, mixing them together, and then creating an image of Oshun. That's how they worship Oshun. They don't have to go to an altar all the time and do all that. No, that's their veneration. So that's tying religion and industry. Because blacks, we have a problem in this country of just taking things and finding the religious value in it, being holy. So you can be the holy man, or the preacher, or the priest, or the Babalawo, or the high chief. Those days have to end. People don't know when we see that. We know this is how it's been all the way throughout the history of black people after we've been free. We've always had someone trying to lead us who didn't know our culture and didn't have no place for us to go, didn't have no real true plan outside of, well, let's see how we can assimilate into white culture. That seemed to have been, the motive along the way. But the people who built this village said, no, let's leave and go build our own village. create our own statehood based on our tradition. And for us, so the system they came up with was called Orisha Voodoo. You see, that's mixing Orisha, the culture of Orisha, coming from Nigeria with the Voodoo. The Voodoo are from Republic of Benin. Right? Remember that the Haitian La people, they practice Voodoo in Haiti. So basically, the bloodline of all of us in this part of the United States who are African descendants, we're primarily Yoruba and Dahomey. This is the history proves this. Voodoo is in New Orleans, right? Voodoo is in New Orleans. You know, the Orisha are in your DNA. Everyone that comes to your tomb, you just got a 23andMe or Yoruba. You know, so they come to your tomb to learn more. You see, and so it's necessary to consider our experience as Black people in our spirituality. Okay? It is necessary to consider our ancestral struggle in our spirituality, right? So if we have an ancestral ceremony, we would break into an African American song as well as a traditional Yoruba song. Yeah, we could say "Ilile talala, Baba re talala." It's like Baba, your father is reaching going home. Baba re talala. Or we can say, "Give me that old time religion, give me that old time religion. With this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Ooh. And you're touching people, because you can tell there's an African American spirit in you, solely developed for this land and for this area. You have to bring it out. You're not going to play drums the same way an African plays, right? You're not going to be able to do it. And so, but the point is that you have to venerate and accept and worship your own experience in this. The Cuban people do. Go to Cuba. There's throngs and throngs and throngs of Black people down there that venerate Orisha, venerate the same tradition and religion, but they do it the Cuban way. They have a thing called Rumba. You don't find that in Nigeria. You can trace it back where it comes from, but it's solely for them for today. Modernized. Modernized. It's popular. This is how you bring the popular culture in. Us just having little temples and little enclaves here and there it's not going to impress the world and bring people in and create super wealth. It's not going to do that. You see, these people are creating their wealth. The entire Cuban Lucumi Santeria system that they have in Cuba, it's an economic system on the low, up under the government. But it's also an influential system and a way of life more. In Cuba, it's a way of life. Once they export the tradition, it's economics, right? But in Cuba, you got the type of foods that they give the Orisha are based on the history, but based on the cousins of those foods that grow in Cuba. But it's the same thing. This is what you call updating your culture and making it modern. So here at Oyatunji, we say this. We seek to project the practical application of ancient African traditions in a modern time. You see? Because people always say, well, you can't bring back all those ancient African traditions, King. All that stuff is old. We like the gods and the goddesses. I'm like, okay, like the gods and the goddesses, but not the rest of the stuff. The gods and the goddesses and the ancestors seem to be, that should be the most complicated part you should be afraid of. Not marriage, not household, not community building, not sustenance, not farming. Everybody feels those parts. But the spiritual part, finding God, we love that. So my father always said that we may have lost the concept, of what this was all about and why he created it and implemented it into the states, which is running like wildfire, individually in every state. It's got its own growth issues and drawbacks and successes. However, the purpose was to build a center town, create satellites, and through the center town, all the satellites grow and the center town grow. Does that make sense? That makes sense. However, many people got into the culture and wanted to aggrandize themselves in the 70s and 80s, creating other enclaves, meanwhile leaving out the center. But professing that they're the ones who created this and they're the ones pushing it, without the totality of the center. So a lot of those little things fell apart. Some of them grew into other leadership, took over, but a lot of those little enclaves sort of fell apart and never could develop into a large entity. Because they say if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's the African culture. African spiritual ancestor veneration. Everything we say is ancestor veneration. So sometimes you have to touch your ancestor shrine. As long as you wear their clothes, living with their attitudes, being gentle, understanding, communal, industrious, you venerating. That's the good part of veneration. Because everyone is into the supernatural now. And we have this much understanding of the natural world, but we want to understand the supernatural. And we see the natural world. Can't even understand it. So we have to bring out the agrarian culture, the agrarian spirit in Yoruba culture. Right? That agrarian spirit is there. Why? Because Oshun is the mother of the river, right? Got fish in it, don't it? In the river, in the estuaries, where life comes to life with the ocean. Okay, aquarium. Orisha Oko, the deity of the farm. Can't you go to Orisha Oko and do spiritual stuff to help grow the largest industry of farming in North America? Yeah, it sounds like, utilizing the spiritual for the natural. But if we have no ambition for the natural, and everybody trying to be lawyers or spiritualists or hide people way up on BS mountain, then we'll never get to it. We'll never get to that phase of using this particular spirituality and this particular culture to advance yourself. You're just always going to be stuck in, pontificating like they do with the Bible. The Bible has 20 different meanings to 20 different people. It's the truth. And so we didn't want to get into that. My father never wanted to get into that. He was very keen on not falling into a heavy spiritualized, over-spiritualized people who cannot march forward because we're all stuck on God. Okay? And he was right. I saw a cartoon, I think it was on my TikTok, and it was saying how the black people, the African, the European, and who was it? It was one more people, the Chinese, go over a gap. So you got a cliff here, you got to fill the gap. Chinese people come over to build a bridge. The white people come over and get other people to build a bridge for them. The black people get to the edge of the cliff and start to pray. Start to pray the bridge up there. The bridge never come up. Sacrifice, eat fire, fly to Africa. Bridge never come up. So that's why we do not have large cultural centers in North America, because we're too steady praying all the time. If you go to Atlanta, you go to New York, you go to California, you're going to find these huge cultural centers. Everybody participates. Money is being pooled. They have schools, education, businesses. It's open to the public as well. Where they go and create and live the culture of the ancestors. So if we want to be great as spiritualists in this African tradition, then we have to go and show the power of our deities. To what you can create from your hands. What you can think, the message the spirits and the ancestors give you. They call it manifestation these days. They give it to you, and you go and you create it with your hands. If that's not taking the message of God and bringing it into the world, what else is there? Okay, we're going too far.
No, I just need to change the battery really quickly.